This video was made for educational purposes only. One of the oldest concepts deeply rooted in various religious and cultural beliefs is demon possession. And it continues to captivate the human imagination and spark debate across different societies. This phenomenon is typically characterized by the belief that a malevolent entity or demon has taken control of an individual's body, mind, or soul, leading to a range of bizarre and troubling behaviors. The idea of demon possession can be traced back to ancient religious texts, folklore, and mythologies. Individuals believed to be possessed often exhibit symptoms such as speaking in unknown languages, displaying superhuman strength, or showing aversion to sacred objects or places. These behaviors are seen as evidence of the presence of a malevolent force that has taken control of the person. Exorcism, the ritualistic practice of expelling demons from a possessed individual, is a common method used to address cases of demon possession. Exorcisms are typically performed by religious figures such as priests, shamans, or spiritual healers, who use prayers, holy water, incantations, and other sacred objects to drive out the possessing entity. While some view demon possession as a literal supernatural phenomenon, others interpret it through a psychological or medical lens. In conclusion, demon possession remains a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that straddles the realms of religion, culture, psychology, and belief systems. Whether viewed as a spiritual reality, a psychological condition, or a cultural construct, the concept of demon possession continues to intrigue, frighten, and challenge our understanding of the unseen forces that may influence human behavior. And in rare cases it can influence the world around the possessed, like we'll see here in this video. So, grab your detective hat and join us on this journey as we attempt to unravel the secrets behind this truly mystifying case. And, don't forget to hit that like button, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also go ahead and ring the notification bell, so you don't miss out on new mysterious content just like this. Well, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Donald Decker, also known as Donnie, had a troubled life. As a young child, he became the victim of SA by the hands of his own grandfather. In 1983, when Donnie was 21 years old, he was serving time at Monroe County Correctional Facility in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, for receiving stolen property. James Kishaugh, his grandfather, passed away in February from liver cirrhosis. Given the mistreatment he had to endure at the hands of his grandfather, Don was relieved to hear the news. Donnie was freed over the weekend of February 24, 1983, so he could go to the funeral. But, when he saw the outpouring of support for his grandfather, whom he detested, and heard everyone else talking so highly of him, he became upset. Nobody else at the funeral was aware of James Kishaugh's sinister secret, which involved abusing his 7-year-old grandson. It was like good versus evil at the time, and no other member of the family knew anything about what happened at the time, but, I was hoping that things would change because the evil was no longer present, Donnie later stated. Donnie left the funeral because he could not stand to hear his family's heartfelt tributes to his grandfather, which he believed glorified his tormentor. Donnie went to stay with family friends Bob and Jeannie Kiefer since his mother would not let him stay at her home. Then, Donnie experienced a sensation that he would later characterize as weird while he was getting ready for dinner in the bathroom. It was in that moment that everything changed. Don claimed he felt as though the room's air had vanished and he was standing in a vacuum as he attempted to dry his hands. He reported feeling extremely cold. His gaze shifted to the window, where he claims to have caught the image of an elderly man laughing at him while donning a crown. Additionally, Don said that something invisible left his forearm with deep claw marks. Donnie was unable to bring himself to talk about what had happened with his friends even after it had all stopped and he had collected himself enough to sit down to dinner. Ultimately, who would think that he had been attacked in a bathroom that was otherwise deserted? Bob immediately noticed the marks on Don's arm. But, Don insisted he wasn't responsible for the marks. Instead, he stated there was something upstairs that attacked him. After dinner, as they were unwinding in the living room, the room began to feel chilly, exactly like Don had felt upstairs. As Jeannie turned to look, she noticed water tumbling down the wall. Assuming they had a leak, the Kieshaughs called Ron Van Wy, their landlord, to come inspect the water pipelines. Upon visiting the property, the landlord and his spouse, Romaine, verified that there were no water pipes located in the locations where the water was originating. No leaks were discovered during Ron and Bob's thorough inspection of the entire home. They couldn't figure it out. They made their way back to the living room, where Don was sitting on the sofa and staring blankly into space. At that point, Ron noticed the water appeared to be dripping upwards, toward the ceiling. Bewildered and unsure of what action to take, they dialed the police. Bob gave Officer John Beaujean a call. Knowing Bob, John responded to his request for assistance, even in this peculiar circumstance. One sizable water drop formed in mid-air and shot off into the darkness of the kitchen while everyone was standing there gazing at the water. Water was leaking from the ceiling, the walls, and now the floor, according to John Beaujean and Richard Walbert. Water drops were seen by the patrolman moving horizontally from wall to wall. Officer Beaujean was at a complete loss. He just couldn't make sense of what he was witnessing. Pam Scrofano, the owner of the nearby restaurant, also stopped by at some point during the evening to see this incident firsthand. After leaving, the officers went to the police chief to file a report. As directed by the officers, Ron and Romaine stayed behind, while Don and the Kieshaughs crossed the street to Pam's restaurant. As soon as the remaining individuals departed, the rain vanished entirely. Don arrived at the restaurant with the Kieshaughs. But, when it suddenly started raining in her restaurant, Pam was convinced Don was possessed, so gave him a crucifix, which allegedly started to burn him. She instructed them to make arrangements for an exorcism at the church. Then, the rain inside the restaurant stopped when Don and the Kieshaughs departed. When Romaine returned to the Kieshaugh residence, she confronted Don and accused him of deliberately causing all of the issues. Before Don could even deny the accusations, pots and pans started banging in the kitchen when Don suddenly levitated off the floor before being violently flung across the room by an invisible force. The officers came back with their chief, a cynical skeptic. The chief gave the officers orders to leave without filing a report because he was adamant that the issue was a plumbing issue rather than supernatural. Defying the chief's orders, 3 officers came back the following day to try and assist the Kieshaughh family in figuring out what was going on. Don was given a crucifix by someone, which burned his hands once more. Once more, Don was flung across the room as the rain began to pour. Don's neck had 3 bleeding marks that the officers observed. Ron began pleading with the churches for assistance. Every priest and minister he spoke to turned him down, but eventually, an evangelical preacher responded to his pleas for help and agreed to come and attempt an exorcism. Donnie started to convulse violently when the preacher started to pray. Upon the conclusion of the prayer, the rain stopped, and those in attendance reported that they sensed a return to a calm atmosphere within the house. Don went back to the jail the next morning to complete his sentence. Warden Dave Keenhold claimed that upon Don's return to the jail, he became aware of a problem. Don appeared to have changed, frightening the other prisoners, according to reports. Don stated he felt as though he had harnessed an energy and it started raining in his cell, in every direction possible. When Don's cellmate begged the warden for assistance, Warden Keenhold summoned the prison chaplain, Reverend William Blackburn, to carry out an exorcism. At first, the Reverend claimed that Don was making things up. But when the cell filled with a death-like odor, and rain began to pour inside the cell, he realized that it was not a hoax and started to read aloud from the Bible. Soon after that, Donnie let out an agonized cry, the exorcism was finished, Don appeared at peace once more, and the rain stopped. Donnie Decker claims that in the nearly 30 years since that weekend, he has never felt or experienced the awful things that he did all those years ago. He really feels that it was his grandfather's ghost returning from the afterlife to hurt him. Don and other witnesses are still unable to explain the rain, even though it has not happened since. But he thinks it has something to do with the mistreatment he experienced from his grandfather all those years ago. Don was taken into custody and faced arson charges in 2012. Some claim that his credibility has diminished due to the recent arrest, even though the incident had nothing to do with the events of 1983. At least 4 police officers and a jail supervisor have testified about this incident, which has also been featured on well-known TV programs like Paranormal Witness and Unsolved Mysteries. This case has been cited as unsolvable for decades and as defying scientific explanation. Many paranormal investigators think the incident is real, despite the fact that many people are convinced it was a hoax. Others, however, are certain a supernatural force was responsible for the strange incidents. One researcher speculated that ice, damming on the roof and attic could have contributed to the incident in the Kishaugh home. He thinks the odd occurrences may have been brought about by melted ice seeping into the house, but that does not account for the reports of rain in the jail and restaurant. Is the Decker case evidence of supernatural abilities, or is there a scientific explanation? Is it a hoax, a legend, or something more paranormal? The truth is, we will never truly know what occurred all those years ago. But, don't let that stop you from letting us know your theory down in the comments below. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching this video through its entirety. Your support truly means the world to me. And if you enjoyed this type of content, don't forget to subscribe, turn on all notifications and share it with your friends. Remember, your feedback keeps me motivated and helps me create even better content for you, so if you would like to see more videos about the creepy and mysterious, just like this one, then check back in a couple days, because I post new videos once or twice a week. Well, until next time, thank you again, and stay awesome.